Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. I am Christian, if you don't know that. And it is Good Friday, which if you're not familiar, that's the day that Jesus Christ was crucified. Um, and after being killed, then there were several days. The story goes 3 days, and then was resurrected on Sunday, which is Easter. And I think it's a good time to talk about the idea that really plagues me sometimes, that I sometimes get confused about. Because this week I shared a post specifically talking about hope. Like, I'm just not one of those people who tends to feel like you get to a point where there's nothing else can be done. Now, if you start talking to me about, how I behave in relationship, that might be different. But when I think about what's happening inside of our institutions right now, when I think about what's occurring just at the national level, I see that people are thinking about all the things that they can't control. They're thinking about many things that they can't even influence, and actually not even doing the things that they have control over or the things that they can focus on. And when you think about circle of concern, circle of influence, circle of control, happiness, hope, um, agency, the desire, the will to keep going, the strength and tenacity that you need to keep going is like right in here. And what I think is fascinating is that when I start to feel overwhelmed myself, I use one of the best focusing tools I know, and it's actually a coaching model called Grow. I last week, in 1 week, lost more than my entire salary when I was in engineering, and it was on a Tuesday. And let me tell you, it was an interesting day, and I thought I was prepared for this. I had you many of you know I've read Project 2025. I have seen all 900 pages. I know that what's playing out is exactly what was detailed in those documents. I just didn't, there was no way for me to prepare myself for what that might look like in real life. So theoretically, to understand what is being said to you and then like actually experiencing it are two different things. And I found myself um, concerning myself with like I'm reaching out to my state legislators, getting ridiculous responses, basically saying they don't care. I'm reading the news, watching what's happening to folks, and I am feeling slightly overwhelmed. I'm looking at homicide numbers going up in my own city, the domestic violence related, hearing people talk about how you should just lock everybody up, knowing that that's not a solution. I'm watching universities be under attack. I'm hearing my clients from all kinds of industries struggle, and it's what's interesting is I recognize that I was trying to control the outcome. What I can control is my inputs, right? And what's baffling to me is when I think about Christians in particular, because um, on this Good Friday, right? The post that I made earlier in the week, many of the dissenters, the ones who were like, "I don't even know why you're talking to the Dems. They don't care about this." Well, I'm a registered Democrat. You can be whatever, you know, part of whatever voting body you want to be. You can be part of the 44% who don't engage in politics at all. But one thing that I know is true is that for every leader I admire, dead and alive, they all have a singular thing in common, and that is they believe that tomorrow can be better than today and that they have the power to make a difference in that situation. To the person, I am not inspired by leaders who are like apathetic, indifferent. oh, what else? And I'm not judging it. That just don't inspire me. And so there's this exercise that I often do with my clients where I have people pull out post-it notes, and take one at a time, and think about their favorite leader and write down a descriptor of that leader. And you'll see this picture. Sometimes I post it on social because it inspires me whenever I have groups do it. Because when I think about my favorite leaders, there's certain things that they were. And on this Good Friday, one of my favorite leaders was Jesus, because I happen to be Christian. A book that I reference the most is Lead Like Jesus. And when I think about what it takes to have all the power, this is how the story goes, to have all the power, to not have to experience something painful, and still you do it because you are doing it for other people. What might it look like to, I mean, that's justice centered, right? To do something for which you were so scared that your sweat turns into drops of blood, and you still do it anyway, even though you don't have to. That's courage. And so, what does it look like to say that you follow someone who so very clearly said, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." Like, that's hope. Even though Jesus never said the word hope, what is it to say, "In this world you'll have trouble, but take heart, because I have come to overcome the world." If you believe that, like, how do you not have hope? How do you not inspire hope in other people? I tell folks all the time, I know a lot more about hypocrisy than I do about anything else. It was Rita Cortez, which congratulations, Rita, on your school board win as well, who first said that to me and gave me the language to what I feel, because empathy can't sit on a bed of hypocrisy. If you say that you value certain leadership characteristics, whatever they are, you write them all down. It is the negative naysayer who is apathetic and critical and can't figure out a way forward. Is that what inspires you? And if that's what inspires you, keep doing that. If a person without resilience is what inspires you, if that's the leader you like, then you keep doing that. But on this here Good Friday, I just really embrace the Jesus who quoted Isaiah. My job is here to proclaim freedom for the oppressed, to give sight to people who don't understand and don't see, and to set oppressed people free. That's my job. And I can take good care of myself and do that job. I can It might cost me something, but it ain't gonna cost me everything, especially if I collaborate with other people. And my job, what I need to do is to continue to put this out into the atmosphere, because this is what I firmly believe. I don't control how people handle it. But if by chance, it gives you great joy to say, I don't know why you talking to those people. I disagree with you. Well, my question is pretty simple. Who should I talk to? Who are you talking to? What are you doing? Like, okay, circle of concern. You're concerned about the fact that you think I'm creating a post that nobody cares about. I love that for you. You sent a message because you feel like you can influence my perspective to, I don't know if the intent is to diminish my hope. I really don't know what it is, but you feel like you can influence, and you did. I'm talking about it today. But the happiness comes from what you can control. Share with me, please. What are you doing? What are you doing? Because when I watch people take a trip to Upper Sky, I refuse to call it space, and spend $21 million a seat on such a thing. I balk at that idea when our nation is under actual attack. I balk at that idea. And it, to me, shows a group of people who are not connected to everyday folks. But everyday folks, you know what they've convinced us to do? And they've convinced us that our issue is Christian against Jewish person. They have convinced us that our issue is Christian against fraternities. They have convinced us that our issue is against Christians against gays, that our issue is Christians against Black people, that our issue is Christians against abortion. And meanwhile, we're all down here battling it out. Insider trading is happening at the top 1%, tenth of a percent of the people, and they just go into the bank right in our eyes, right in front of our eyes. And part of it is made possible because if I can convince you that your issue is race, if I can convince you that these women are just too powerful right now, if I can convince you that gay people are the bane of your existence, and that if I can convince you that autistic people shouldn't exist and heavy people are lazy, and if I can convince you that your work is to try to fix somebody else instead of really chipping away at the system, greed wins. Greed wins. But is there room and hope for the future? All I know is, as a Christian on this here Good Friday, Christian on this here Good Friday, Jesus said we were going to do better things than he did. That's what I heard. That's what I heard. And so the people who get it can't waste and expend a bunch of energy fighting against each other over things that just, at the end of the day, do they even really matter? I woke up and I was just trying to get a good sense for what's going on with the world. And I saw that there was a debate about, do you call North Carolina A&T? A&T, which is what those of us who are probably 40, 45 and older call it, or do you call it NCAT? Full on argument. I can't control that. But I can tell you that it is a distraction. And young people have persistently been our way out of these problems. And if we're sitting around yelling at them, talking about what's wrong with them, acting like they don't have the capacity to move forward in any meaningful way, I'm not so sure that we're not the ones that are beating out the hope that does exist. I'm not so sure. You know, it's fascinating to be almost 50 and have people talk to you and about you as if you are um, young. It's not young. King never lived to see 40. Malcolm X never lived to see 50. The people who have been the most courageous among us, who valued hope, they did die young. But what's important to know is that the people who were supporting them, the small group of people who were supporting them, I keep pointing out that the Black Panther Party was not hundreds of thousands of people. The Montgomery bus boycott was not hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, most people are usually in disagreement because the strategy is always the same: distract, divide, destroy. Remove a person's ability to hope for something different, because then they can't see their own agency and they are out here talking about everything that is a point of concern and never getting to what I actually can do and what I actually can control. I've been so inspired by what Harvard did this week. And they have even changed their whole website, honey. And just like, look, let me tell you what, the government does not determine our freedom of speech. Do they have the money to be able to do that? Absolutely. And while we're sitting around criticizing them because they have the money to do it, thank God they are doing it. Thank God they're doing it. Because what they could be doing with their money instead is getting on a little rocket ship, taking a little $21 million trip to upper sky and posting it for all of us to look at. Meanwhile, middle class folk looking at poor folk going, you're just lazy. If you're saved, if you didn't buy those Jordans, it's a distraction tactic. It's a distraction tactic. And on this here Good Friday, I am just convinced that Jesus' teachings and his parables and all of his actions consistently pointed us toward expectation of something bigger, some future promise. And honestly, that's biblically what hope is. So if you want to use your Bible to tell me about who shouldn't love who shouldn't be pregnant and who shouldn't be part of a sorority or fraternity or not. If you're going to use your Bible for that, why don't you use it to build some hope in some folk? Because Jesus was certainly that example for us. And on this here Good Friday, that's pretty much all I got. I talked to my chief advisor and thought partner early this morning, and he said to me, Nicole, there's a story of a wealthy family that was on a ship, and the ship ran into turbulent waters, a massive storm. And the wife of the wealthy couple reaches out to the second in command and tells the captain of the ship, look, you need to just stop. We don't need to keep going forward because you're going to kill us all. And the captain, with all of his experience and with all his wisdom, wanted to know more about the person who made this request. The information was shared with him, and he said, tell her this. We will keep going through the storm because this ship was built for the storm. And I started to laugh before he even got through the story because, yes, we need rest. Yes, we need emotional to check in with ourselves. Yes, we need self care. And we also need resilience. This thing where now when something happens to us, we retreat and we go in and we cannot function, that ain't gonna get us where we need to go. And when I think about Bryan Stevenson, let me pull this up because I want to leave you with this. He is the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. Most of you have, well, you might have seen the movie Just Mercy based off of his story of just getting innocent people off death row. He says hope is kind of an orientation of the spirit. It's how you position yourself in places where there's a lot of despair. Attorney Bryan Stevenson to me is the person who has the greatest right to think that there's no hope. If you imagine the stories that he has seen, like those of Anthony Ray Hinton, which I think is one of the most infamous ones, where this man was in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He could prove it because he checked into his work. He could prove it because half a dozen, if not a dozen people saw him somewhere else. The police knew he didn't do it. The state government didn't do it. And they still just put him in prison anyway. And every year, just appeal after appeal after appeal after appeal after appeal. And folks knew he was innocent and kept him in jail anyway. Even after they proved without a shadow of a doubt that he was innocent and that he should be let go, he was still in prison because the prison system ain't even set up for letting him out. By the time this was all said and done, we're talking about 30 years or so. I don't know. I don't want to mess up the time because there is a difference between 28 years and 30 years. I don't remember exactly what it was. But Bryan Stevenson was the person who walked alongside Anthony Ray Hinton for that 30 years or so. It's been 3 months. 3 months. 90 days. And we have the capacity to collectively decide that in the spaces where we have skill, talent, and ability, we are going to collaborate with other people to make something different from this happen. I don't have all the answers, but I believe the answer's in the room, and the room is you. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got plenty work to do.